Until 2016, I was primarily a commercial litigator. I was known for my subject. I was also practicing constitutional law. But my very first opportunity to argue before a constitution bench in the Supreme Court came on the 26th of July 2018, when I was 32 years old, to represent the rights of Dharmasastha, of Swami Ayyappa, to protect the sanctity of that Sannidhi. The second opportunity that came my way, again in a constitutional matter, was to represent the chief Tantri of the Padmanabha Swami temple in the treasure case, again before the Supreme Court. So in national media, in most of our conversations, people have a tendency to say, Bengal is gone, Kerala is also gone. Most people say this. I think Sabarimala was a fantastic slap on everybody who said that. Because the ladies of Kerala effectively told the Supreme Court, we know our kshetrams and our paddhati better than anybody else. We don't need anybody else to teach us. I think this was extremely crucial. So the first judgment of the Constitution bench in the Sabarimala matter came out on the 28th of September 2018. So it was a 4-1 verdict, 5 judges, 1 lady, out of which all the 4 judges who were male judges disagreed with us. The lady judge agreed with our position. So when the judgment was being pronounced, the evening before I went to an Ayyappa Sannidhanam in Delhi, because I lived there, and I wasn't sure how I would react if the judgment was negative. I had no idea. So when the judgment was being pronounced and I realized it was going to be negative, to my own surprise, I was smiling widely. For a very good reason. If the judgment had been positive, a sleeping Hindu population would continue sleeping, because they would think all is well. It is easy to convince people when they are angry, when they know what is the extent of the problem. Ignore what I have to say, but from 2018 to 2024, don't you think Hindu consciousness has only increased? It has. For multiple reasons. Because Sabarimala no more was limited to Kerala. It was no more limited to Malayalis across the world. For the first time in a very long time, a so-called regional temple, Sabarimala was never a regional temple, but in some people's heads it was a South Indian temple. So one South Indian temple finally became a Hindu temple. And people started thinking on those lines. People started focusing on what is happening on the ground, because they thought Kerala means red flag, job is over, there's nothing that we can do. But the commitment of the Hindus and the Sanatanis in this state, in this land, to their kshetrams was fantastically visible in 2018 and subsequently. 55 review petitions were filed against the negative verdict. And finally, if my memory serves me right, on 14th of November 2019, the Supreme Court realized that there were serious questions which had to be addressed, and the review petitions were allowed. Which is why subsequently in January 2020, when one of the activists from this part of the state wanted to visit the temple in violation of the practices of the temple, the Supreme Court finally said, until we hear all these review petitions, the 1,000-year practice of Sabarimala temple will prevail over a 1-year-old judgment. So there was a realization in the highest court of the land that it hadn't understood dharma fully. That was merely the beginning. Subsequently, the floods here sent a divine message to people who were interfering with the temple, according to me. And for the first time in recorded modern history, people waving the red flag were introduced to the concept of Deva Bhayam. That you will not interfere with the kshetra anymore. There will be a karma phalam for it, so please don't interfere. I must also say this so that people know this fact. I had more Hindus opposing me during my arguments, and I had Malayali Christians supporting me during my arguments. That is an unfortunate reality also. I had more Tamil Brahmin girls opposing me who are from my own community, whereas Malayali Christian girls, in fact, Anju George, who stood next to me, she was perfectly comfortable with my position. So while it certainly awakened the Hindu society, it also showed the problems within the Hindu society. It is very easy to blame everybody else for our problems. It requires more honesty to look into your own community. Despite everything that is happening around us, one family has managed to run this temple in such a fantastic fashion for decades. If this is possible, what is impossible? It's not as if they are living in a very peaceful surrounding. They have their own share of challenges. That has not stopped them from continuing with their tradition. The second and the third generation have gotten ready. And Devata's willing, it will continue. At a time, I'm known for being very blunt. So if I offend any sentiments, kshamikkanam. At a time when the red flag has a problem with the Yajnapavitam, one person wearing the Yajnapavitam has managed to do all of this. It is not about jati pride at all. It is about Sanatana pride, period. That is what people need to understand. Every kshetram strengthens the Hindu community spiritually, politically, culturally, and even at the family level. Because at the end of the day, when a family does not have the support of the community, the first thinking of the family is, how do I pass on my values to my children when they don't have people from the same community of their age group? You may not know the trouble when it comes to raising children in a different atmosphere. Ask American Hindus, they'll tell you what the problem is. Their first concern when they start having children and they start raising a family is, will I be the last person to have a connection with Bharat and Hinduism? Because they are never sure who the child is going to marry, what kind of values they will have. They have no idea. So I have a relative who was an atheist as long as he was in Bharat. Product of IITs, product of IIMs, all the traditional buddhi, just a bit vakram. Today, he is an astrologer and purohit in New Jersey. Because you realize the value of what you have only after you lose it. The value of living in a country where your kshetrams are there, where thousands of years of history is still alive, we don't realize it fully. So before the Sabarimala arguments, my own commitment to Sandhya Vandanam and everything else was very minimal. Not that I had a problem with it, but I had enough excuses to offer. Oh, I'm very busy. I have other things to do. And ultimately, devotion has to be in the heart. Practice is not necessary. Spirituality is more important than ritual. The worst of arguments and excuses possible, I was telling myself. So fortunately, there is a purohit in the extended family. He basically said, stop giving lectures until you start Sandhya Vandanam. You have no right to give lectures to anyone. What my parents could not convince me about, he did. Because he clearly showed my own hypocrisy. So he said, at least make yourself one promise. Either your first meal will not happen until you've done Sandhya Vandanam, or you will do Sandhya Vandanam at least once a day. One of these two promises, Sankalpam, you have to make under any circumstances. Namaskaram. So, why is this important? When it comes to dharma, jnanam has its value, knowledge has its value. But there is no substitute for sadhana. And there is no substitute for personal practice. Because the confidence to defend your faith increases with increasing practice, not with increasing knowledge. So many Ayyappa Bhaktas who took the lathi charge at the temple were not jnanis, they were bhaktas. Their understanding of the history of the temple may not be 100% accurate, but their commitment to that kshetram was better than everybody else who knew about the temple. People like me, because we argued in the Supreme Court and because newspapers reported it, our faces are known. But the thousands of people whose families suffered because of continued police action, because of legal persecution, because of political persecution, kindly clap for them because they have never been acknowledged. Their contribution in protecting Sabarimala must be recognized. Second, according to me, the Sabarimala movement threw up some fantastic young faces, finally, in this land, so that red could have a saffron response. Shanku is one of them. This is my first meeting with him. He and I have only spoken with each other. The manner in which he has survived all the attacks of all kinds, especially in a vicious atmosphere, is an inspiration for everyone who wants to enter public life. The second Yajñopavitam that defended the tradition of this land belongs to the Travancore royal family. At a time when everybody accused them of everything under the sun, I have personally interacted with Tampurati Ashwati Tirunal on a regular basis during the arguments and even after that. I have had a meal with them. I must tell you this. Their simplicity was absolutely shocking. Kaudiyar Palace is a palace only in name. It is otherwise a very simple Malayali home. I have shared a meal with them. There was nothing extravagant about it. So typically when you come from Delhi, the culture is when there is a guest, even if you have 10, you must show 100. That is the nature of exaggeration. The Travancore family was the exact opposite. They did not feel the need to show off. They did not feel the need to throw their weight. They were, if people did not know who they were, they would absolutely have no clue that they were standing next to royalty at all, whether it is coming to their dressing or their behavior. I have interacted with the next generation and I've had coffee with them at Sarana Bhavan in Delhi, not any 5-star hotel. Dharma inculcates humility, not arrogance. That is the first lesson from their lives. If you want to be arrogant, if you want to have an ego about your community identity, not about your individual identity. The Hindu Vikruti is that it's the exact opposite. Personally egoistic, as a community 100% diffident, no confidence at all. This needs to change. I'm genuinely hoping that I'm being as simple in my communication as possible. The curse of a lawyer is that they are always complicated. So I'm trying to be as simple as possible in my message. I don't think it is a matter of pride that I can speak so well in English. The unfortunate reality is I don't know my mother tongue in terms of the script. My adopted mother tongue happens to be Telugu, but because I've been outside of Hyderabad for 18 years, my Telugu is equally bad. So I am the typical example of a Macaulay Putra who speaks and unfortunately still thinks only in English. I think I've been blessed by the deities and my ancestors that my dharmic spirit continues to exist despite my anglicized thinking. I come from a low middle class family, and in most Tamil Brahmin low middle class families, because we are otherwise landless destitutes with absolutely no political muscle or any kind of, let's say, landed properties. There is a difference between the Nambudris of Kerala and Tamil Brahmins. We'd never had land. So no reforms affected us ever because we are always poor. It didn't make a difference to us. The only thing we were told was that we must do Sashtanga Namaskaram to Saraswati. That is the only way to climb up. That's all we know, nothing else. And the way to climb the social ladder, at least in my generation, was always knowing English. That was the curse of my generation. So that is the unfortunate reality. I know of so many brilliant lawyers who may be bad at English because they've come from the regional language, but whose understanding of the law is vastly superior even to mine. But if there is a textbook example of our situation, it is when English prevails over knowledge, and English is equated with knowledge. So I had to basically reach out to English-speaking Hindu Mandukas to tell them, please come out of your wells, know your culture better. There's a lot that the Sanskriti has offered. That's why the books were written. So people ask me a lot of things. Why did you not translate this into other languages? I said, because the cancer is in the English-speaking Hindu, not in others. The more you're rooted in your language, the better you're aware of your culture. Because language, Bhasha is the medium of transmission of culture. Every idiom, every proverb is a reflection of your collective memory. Whenever we think of a fantastic teacher, why do we think of Drona? Whenever we think of ekagrata, concentration, you think of Arjuna. When you think of someone who is strong, who is healthy, your go-to references are either Anjaneya or Bhimasena. So culture and language are integrally connected. So that is one of the reasons I decided that my English-speaking circles are the most anglicized and de-Indianized section of the Indian society. The good news is, over the last 4 years, the first book was launched in 2021, the second book was launched in 2022. Despite my professional schedule, I undertook a book tour across the country to understand what is the impact. There have been instances where communist parents have Sanatani children who basically came and said, our parents are like this, what do we do? It's the reverse, imagine. It's not the parents talking about their children, it was the children talking about their parents. This happened in Bangalore. I've given this example before, so I said, Prahalada was born to Hiranyakasipu. What can you do? So it is your job to teach your parents. At some point, Murugan even taught his own father. Of course, your parents are not Shiva. They are the exact anti of everything that Shiva stood for and stands for. So find a way to bring them back on track. Parents typically have the misfortune of correcting their children. You have the good fortune of correcting your parents, so go ahead and do it. A lot of people who were believers in the cancer called Dravidian ideology from Tamil Nadu, people who were believers in this cancer called Periyarism, people who were believers in the pernicious cancer in the Indian body called communism, youngsters between the age group of 18 to 30, they would come to the book tour and they would say, initially we had a resistance to your point of view. But the more we heard you and people like you, we started looking at the problem better. And we have moved from the left to the center. A lot of people think that the lockdown period was bad for Bharat. 100% it had its own impact. Because it affected livelihoods, it affected people's ability to move around, we lost so many people. I don't deny any of that. But for the first time in a very long time, people were forced to sit at their homes. No new movies were being released. There was no other means of entertainment other than YouTube. So 2020 March onwards, people started consuming content on YouTube which brought them closer to their Sanskriti. That has actually happened. The lockdown period, according to me, was a period of transition for Bharat. Think of it. Typically, any of these epidemics are called Mahamari for a reason. According to me, Bhagavati did her job. And she said, you basically need a shock treatment, because if I let you continue down this path, you incorrigible Hindus will never wake up. So maybe I need to slap you once more. And that is what ultimately happened. The proof of that is the celebration of the Prana Pratishtha as a national festival. So the journey from 23rd of March 2020, when lockdown was imposed, to 22nd January 2024 is a case study in how we have changed, fortunately for the better. Before you think I'm speaking on behalf of any political organization, I'm not. I have no interest. Because I believe that every political organization is only interested in politics. At least that is true 90% of the time. I am more interested in the Hindu society waking up. Let's think of it in a slightly different fashion. If any other political organization had constructed the Ram Mandir, would we have said, no, you can't? Only one party must do it? No, right? If anybody else had taken an interest in being confident Hindus, would we have said, no, this is reserved only for one party? No, right? So there are two things here. It is the unfortunate reality of Bharat that Hindus have only one option. It is not a fortunate reality at all. I genuinely believe we should have more options. I am thinking as a Hindu, and therefore I will say I should have many more parties and many more options batting for us, fighting for us, and pushing our interest. But how will that happen? How will that happen? Assuming that that is the goal, how will that happen? Should all of us go down to the streets? We can't. We have to earn our livelihoods. We have families. Most of us come from hopefully middle class families, therefore we have so many other concerns. How do we do all of this? Let me present a hopefully workable solution, and let me see how many of you think it is possible to do it, or how many of you think it is practical. One, forget about Hindu community. Very easy for Hindus. So forget. That is my first suggestion. Doable, correct? We have always forgotten the Hindu community. So I am asking you to do what you have always been doing. Forget it. Focus on your family. That's easy. There is a very clear incentive. You don't need to make the society Hindu. Make your family more Hindu. That's it. Start with that. Because they are targeting your children. Their hope is your children. You may think 2024, 2029, they are fighting 2036, 2040. They are preparing for that. Because the children of today will be the voters of tomorrow. Imagine at a time when the Prana Pratishtha is being celebrated as a national festival across the world by dharmikas, the maximum opposition also to that came from the Hindu community. People who did not know history, people who did not know what is the meaning of fighting for 496 years, people who did not understand how much of an effort it takes to fight a legal battle for 160 years. The first complaint was filed by a particular Muhammad on 30th of November 1858 against Ram Janmabhoomi. So from 1858 to 9th of November 2019. Ramanavami, 9th of November. It was not Ramanavami, but I believe that it was delivered on 9th of November for a reason. So from 30th November 1858 to 9th of November 2019, for one temple, you have had to fight for 160 years after winning in the first round and then having to prove yourself in the second round with archaeology supporting you, with history supporting you, with evidence fully supporting you. For one temple we had to do so much. Tell me this honestly, if Hindus had been even more united as a community, would it have taken us 160 years to get one temple back? One temple back. Just one temple. Temple dedicated to Maryada Purushottam Ram. One temple. And now we are fighting for Shiva, we are fighting for Krishna. In which other country 80% population will be begging before its courts to give back the holiest of its places like this? So you're fighting the courts, you're fighting outsiders, and you're fighting insiders also, your own children. So perhaps what I'm trying to tell you is, political victories have a tendency to close your eyes to problems inside, because you're constantly thinking, oh, we won, ho gaya, job is done. I am trying to tell you, please don't be myopic, don't be short-sighted. This battle has to continue at least for another 2 generations, and the definition of a generation typically is 20 to 25 years. This generation is the battleground generation, because if this generation decides we want a Sanatana Rashtra back, with equal treatment for everyone, with respect for everyone, but nobody should have the right to take away our Sanatana identity under any circumstances. If this generation decides that, then there will be a next generation. The existence of the next generation, please don't take it for granted. This is the battleground generation. No person, according to me, shows up in public life on their own. As a civilization and as a land that believes in munis and rishis and their prayers, such as Sri Malliur Shankaran, I genuinely believe that it is the prayers of so many generations finally saying, how much more blood do we have to spill before we find our Kshatra and Shakti back? It has started happening. I will never say this is about a particular individual. No. Because when you think about an individual, you forget the community. Always think about the community. So going back to my suggestion, think about your family, think about your community, think about your kshetras. Your simple philosophy has to be only this, and it's my suggestion. I'm nobody to tell you what to do. Whoever ensures and protects the sanctity of the kshetra, whoever guarantees the protection of Hindu interest, whoever ensures that your children will not be bullied in schools for being Hindus, will not be bullied in colleges for being Hindus, will not be shamed on social media for being Hindus. Whoever can protect you from all of this is the only person who must be given the power and the position to lead you. That's it. When I say whoever, I am not being smart and clever in talking about any one person. No, I am being blunt here. Because at the end of the day, no one person can continue to succeed in power all the time. No one party can be in power all the time. That's not how it works, because there is probability, there is chance, there is luck. So investing in the long run as a community would mean investing everywhere. Meaning that you will say, if you do this for me, I will vote, period. I am not again on political interest. I am on using political interest to protect Hindu interest. There is a difference. 3, as Hindus, we may have a lot of difference of opinion within ourselves. It can be jati based, it can be whatever, language based, or whatever it may be. Learn to resolve your differences away from the media. Because when the media sees your differences, others will take advantage of it. It is not as if other communities don't have difference of opinion internally, but they are smart enough to never fight in public. That's all. You know how they resolve their differences? They use their places of prayer and their so-called gurus to resolve differences between communities. Our problem is that we have rejected their authority fully. Because Brahmin oppressor, no, we can't listen to the fellow at all. Are all gurus only Brahmins? No. Not at all. Was Narayana Guru a Brahmin? I strongly believe in him. Because at the end of the day, he presented his point of view to unite people, not to divide them. Because he understood that dividing people in the name of jati will hand us on a platter, on a golden platter to others. There is a raging controversy going on in social media and other places about should we destroy jati, what should we do? For 2000 years, multiple people have come trying to destroy jati. Hasn't worked at all. It has not worked. Then what do? Keep fighting. I have a simpler solution to offer. Respect every jati first. Respect everyone because they are part of the Hindu family. That's it. Respect everybody's contributions. Respect every profession. Don't make fun of any profession. Ever. Because you never know when you might reach that place. And you never know which relative of yours will be in that place. Never insult any profession. As long as people are doing it honestly and it is useful for the society, don't insult any profession. I've said this at least in 2 different places. Never insult the profession called puncture wala, please. Don't do it. It's terrible. Plumbers, mechanics, electricians, everybody is important. Try running one society with any of them contributing to your existence. You cannot write a simple code without your house running in a proper fashion. They ensure that you're in a position to work. So if you can't destroy jati, the simpler thing is to respect all jatis. Always do that. And you can subscribe to your jati identity perhaps in marriages or at homes. But when you come out, you will think only as a Sanatani. That's it. At least this generation must start thinking on those lines if we have to survive. You can do 1,000 Bhagavata Saptahams and it won't make a difference if the Saransh is not understood at all. And if you're going to think of this as some Katha Kalakshepam, it is not. It will affect your lives in your lifetime, not after you. Anybody who reads political science will tell you this. The democracy is barely 100, 150 years old. There was a time when people were laughing at democracy. How will it work? Monarchy works. What is democracy? Today we are worshipping democracy. God knows what will happen in 10, 15 years. We have no idea. Nobody knows. We don't have some story to put and say, oh, find out what will happen in 10, 15 years to a democracy. Let's call a tantri from this place. It won't. We don't know. We have no idea. Why am I saying this? The problem with democracy is that every generation thinks that the next generation will address the problem. Nobody is trying to address the problem now. So what you are actually leaving for your children is the legacy of your problems, not solutions. Otherwise, why would it take 75 years of independent Bharat to get back one temple? Before that, they fought when we were not independent. So I will not hold them responsible. I will give them 100% credit for continuing a civilizational battle for close to 420 years when Bharat was not independent. They were facing the tiger and the snake. I'll just leave it at that. Both. And they continued to fight. So, when people say, no, we cannot fight as Hindus without any organization, what organization was leading the Ram Janmabhoomi before any organization came about? 1925, the first organization comes into existence. The second organization comes into existence in the 1950s under Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. The third organization comes into existence in 1980. But Ram Janmabhoomi started in 1528. Not in 1925, not in 1950, not in 1980. They were guided by their faith in Rama, that's it, nobody else. So learn from your ancestors, because if you are still able to attend this lecture or go to a temple, the credit goes to your ancestors. This land has seen a lot of padayatams. I'll just leave it at that. And still you have survived. So, coming back to the solutions, family, kshetrams, community, jati inside home, community outside home. As simple as that. And if possible, whoever has the Shakti for it, Yatha Shakti, 10% of your revenue must go towards supporting the community, either orphans or education, or those communities for whom reservation has been given but who are not getting the benefits of reservation. In schools and colleges, a lot of times children ask me, how long will we have reservations? So I said, as long as there is a politician, reservation will continue. Because every politician knows that he cannot remove it. He will lose his votes. So what is the simpler way? Kshetrams must take responsibility for educating those communities who are not getting the benefit of education. You must give them the self-confidence that they can stand on their own. And there will obviously come a time when people will say, we don't need any crutches. It has happened in Tamil Nadu. Some communities in Tamil Nadu have effectively said, we want to be removed from the schedule. We don't want to be treated as SC and STs anymore because we are Devendra Kula Vellalars. That is, our deity is Devendra. We are agriculturists. We own land. We have come to a point where we don't need reservations. So I am not giving you a hypothetical example. Tamil Nadu has among the highest percentage of reservations against the constitution. Constitution permits only 50%. Tamil Nadu has 69%. In a state which is asking for 69% reservation, one SC community has come out and said, we are not SCs. We don't want to be in that category anymore. Doesn't that mean that the answer is not in politics, but the answer is in society? Our institutions must find a way to support our people as much as possible. Support the kshetram, support the devata, but also support the community. So every kshetram must have at least 2 institutions associated with it. And I'm learning from the other person, a school and a hospital. And hopefully, in my lifetime at least, the hospital will have an Om symbol and not any other symbol. I'm hoping. I am not speaking against anybody else. I am speaking in the interest of my community, and I'm presenting a positive picture to you as to what you must do. Nothing that I have said is against anybody. Because it's easy to get claps by speaking against others. So I'm trying to tell you, all of this is possible. Name one thing that I have told you for which you need outside help. At least 2 children. You don't need outside help for that. Schools in your favor. Protecting your temples. Making sure that those who are protecting the Vedas are given the support of the community. Those who are protecting the cows are given the support of the community. All of this is capable or is possible from within. You don't need anybody else for this. We have tried all of the solutions by depending on the state fully. Has it worked? It hasn't worked. So I am asking for Atmanirbhar Hindu society. There can't be Atmanirbhar Bharat without the Hindus, who are 80% of the population, hopefully, we don't know, hoping that we are at least 80% still. In this state we are not, I know that for a fact. The hope is that this will lead to a lasting change. You will compromise on Hinduism if your interest is exclusively in political Hinduism and not in social Hinduism. When you constantly focus on parties and not focus on the ground realities, you are missing the big picture. When you improve the situation for Hindus in your immediate neighborhood, the incentive to leave this place and go to Guelph will come down. People will stay. Because I know for a fact that Keralites and Malayalis in general love their lakes, love their water, love their mountains. They'll have to have bath at least thrice a day. So my friends in engineering were Malayalis only. And I was doing my engineering in Coimbatore, and Coimbatore sometimes has a water shortage issue. If Siruvani doesn't send enough water, then it doesn't have enough water. Even in those times, I would see them going to the washroom thrice to have a bath. I said, hey, this is not Kerala, we don't have water. So there is a connection which going out of Bharat has not destroyed. That will continue. So I was there in Philadelphia in 2018. I was invited by the Kerala Hindu North American Association. So the groups are divided on the district basis. Kottayam has a group, Pathanamthitta has a group, everybody has a separate group. So they continue to have ties with their villages, with their districts. If you were to give them the opportunity to lead better lives here, they will not go. But why is that important for us? Because numbers matter for the safety of a community, period. Those people, and I will leave it to your imagination, who were constantly talking against us when they realized that if they have Hindu neighbors they are safer, are now speaking in our favor. So, one of the bottom lines is demography is destiny. There is safety in numbers. But numbers are useless if every finger behaves as an individual unit without becoming a fist. And for the fist to become a fist, fingers must realize that they are part of a hand. Only then the hand works. Not this hand, this hand. Okay? So, my suggestion to you is, think, even if you want to think about this, let it be Abhayahastam of Padmanabha Swami. All of this, find a way as a community to use your kshetrams, as a way of rebuilding your Sanatani identity. The first role of a kshetram is to protect the divine energy. That is the first role. But the second role is to protect the mental and social well-being and economic well-being of Sanatanis. Who is the kshetram built for if there is nobody to worship? As Mr. Haridas pointed out in his opening statement, the temple existed. For a long time, people did not even know the temple existed. People did not know that the energy space is for their benefit. Murti Puja is not worshipping an idol. Murti Puja is worshipping the prana which has been consecrated in the idol. That is why it is prana pratishtha. So when that energy resides here, the energy will be different. Ask Hindus of Delhi. It took them centuries before finally the Birla Mandir was built in Delhi. Until then, they did not have the ability to build temples at all. And the energy of Delhi is way more negative because there are not enough temples there. The energy of Kerala is still positive because your kshetrams are alive. So please don't underestimate the importance of your kshetrams. If a kshetram exists, one is the divine energy. Second, you're confidently saying, I exist, this is my place. Then community around it will come. The real estate will belong to the community. It has its own value. So in Tamil Nadu, what happens is the Dravidianist government will take away the land of the temple, which is all the endowed lands, all the adjoining lands, and say, I will give you money in return for land. We said money can never be compensation for land. The only compensation for land is land. Because then my people will have real estate. That is the value of real estate. We understand the value of real estate in our personal transactions. We ignore the value of real estate when it comes to Hindu transactions. So perhaps if we can think beyond us, every well-doing Hindu financially must hope to support at least two people who are not doing well. If we don't lift each other, there are people waiting to take us away. I cannot say this enough. If you have the ability to buy 10 cars, buy 9 cars, no problem. Use the money for the remaining car at least for somebody else. I know the kind of cars that go around in Tiruvalla. I've been there, I've had friends from there. So there is no paucity of subhiksham at all in this state. Money is coming from some place or the other. Find a way to ensure that it benefits your community. I'm not saying don't do anything for others. No. But because we are living in Kali Yugam, look out for your community first before doing anything else for anybody else. That's all I have to say.